Alright, what is up guys? So this intro is going to be on both the videos that are being released, so don't be confused if you see the same one. I want to thank you guys for the support in the last video. I know it was super long. I got some suggestions, people saying, hey, maybe you just do attacking on one video, or you do attacking and defending, and then attacking and defending on another one. Attacking and defending on one side, attacking and defending on another side on the other one. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to go ahead and split this video up. Want you to go ahead and, if you like it, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, definitely big time. So go ahead and just like, comment, subscribe, anything. Let me know what you guys think of the Sage nerfs. Now, I know they said that they were buffs to her because of XYZ, because you can't jump through her ice anymore, but now you can walk through her ice and not make noise. So, in my opinion, it was a pretty significant nerf. But I think it was a needed nerf. I like the nerf to the wall as well, that knives do extra damage to it now. I think that's huge. I think that needed to happen, and that's coming from a Sage main. But I hope you guys enjoy the orbs here. Enjoy the walls here. The walls are a little different, guys. They're kind of hard to give tips on because the walls are so situational. Orbs are a little less situational. You kind of know what orb spots you're going to be orbing off. Whereas walls are kind of situational. If somebody's pushing through connector, you're going to wall off connector. If they're pushing through long, you're going to wall off long. Stuff like that. It's a little more difficult to pin down walls. So I hope you guys do enjoy the video. Let me know what you guys think down below, and I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. What's up, guys? Wunzy here with another Sage video. You guys really liked the bind map strategy that I did. I know some of you guys said, hey, please make another video for the other two maps, so I went ahead and I'm going to do Split now. Split is was my favorite map and is now probably my least favorite map, but this is a map that Sage is extremely strong on. There's a lot of tight corridors in this map. There's a lot of good ways to utilize your walls and your orbs here, with very limited ways to push on this map. So defense Sage on this map is so valuable. So it's best to stay alive like as normal, because your ult is one of the strongest still in the game as far as like pivotal and pushing things. But we're going to go over some orbs, we're going to go over some walls, some blind orbs. So what that is when you throw an orb at a certain area of a site, or an area where you don't have to peek to do that. We're going to go over some of those. Those are some of the safest ones to do, but usually require some lineups or whatnot. We're going to go over all that. And again, if you guys... well, first of all, let me back this up a little bit. We're going to split this up into like an attack and a defense separate videos, because my other video was 6 minutes long, entirely too long, but you guys seem to like it. Please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know down below what your favorite agent is. What's your thoughts on the buffs or the nerfs today, and what's your thoughts so far of Valorant? Alright guys, so the first orb we'll be throwing is a mid orb. As some of you know, or most of you know that have played this map, there's a lot of emphasis on mid control. Now that's because there's access to both sides from mid, some of the best access from both sides, that being Heaven on the B side, Heaven on the A side, and even that back spawn hallways in A. A lot of times, players will play mid either deep, which is in the vent side, or they'll play the connector side B. This orb is not going to stop those that are going to play deep vents, which, in my opinion, is the more popular spot. But it will push the person in connector usually out, either to fall back into Heaven, and then leave you with a one-on-one with the person in back vents, or it's going to allow you, if you're doing a rotation, if you're coming back through spawn, like, you know, you went on an A hit and you're coming back through spawn, you stop over here to throw this orb, it's going to freeze all this up so that they can't really effectively rotate through mid, through that mid top, okay? Now, this one is it's an easy orb. It's one of those like mortar orbs that I like to throw. You got the 3 like roadblocks here. You got like the first middle line here on the fence. You're gonna line up with that one. You're gonna put the orb here. Now, what you're gonna look at, you have this building here that's under construction or whatnot. If you look, there are lines going all the way up. Now, this was a really hard lineup. There's a ton of obstacles in this mid area that you can't see. Like I can't show you on the screen because right now there's no clipping. But there's a ton of buildings, roofs, and air conditioning vents. I tried throwing certain orbs here and just bounces off stuff and everything. This was the most consistent one I was able to find. Now, if you look all the way up, you have one line at the very top. You got the one below it. You go to the one below it until it reaches the very top layer there, and you throw your orb. Now what this is going to do, if it's done correctly, it's going to drop right on mid, and you froze off all a mid. Now, one of the more common areas that people like to play is close mid right here. And again, like I said, if they're playing connector, which is an area they like to play, it's going to freeze them off. And you have to be careful of back connector. They will still have an opening here to play. And then, of course, the more popular vents, which in my opinion is the most popular and is the strongest area to play mid from. You can throw deeper orbs if you want to peek or whatnot. I'm trying to get the lineup to where an orb can go directly through here, and then drop into vents, and we'll get into that later. Now here's another mid orb. I kind of talked about how you can put the orb a little deeper or a little easier in when I went on the mid side. Now this orb's a lot easier. This is an orb that I don't necessarily like though because of how long it takes for you to rotate to where you want to go. So this is a fine orb if you're going to kind of hold back. If you're going to kind of sit back and let your team push in front of you, then you're going to push out, which is usually how you want to play Sage sometimes. She's not really an entry fragger. I know there's been other videos like AZK is probably one of the better or best Sage players I've seen so far. And he's very good at entry fragging with Sage. My playstyle with Sage is a little more passive. I like to kind of hang back, try to get my picks, and then hold my res to get my like pivotal players like my Phoenixes or whatnot. Now, this is a very easy orb, very simple. As you can see, I can't go anywhere. I'm holding W right now. I'm stuck in this corner with this bike. And this is spawn, of course. You have this sign right here. You want to throw your orb over here. This is going to line you up with vents, and it's going to freeze the middle. Now, when you put it here, it's going to freeze all of that mid. Basically the same orb that we did when we threw the one up here. And I'm going to show you guys where everything lands here in a second. When we threw it up there, over on the other side, I prefer that other one as well because it's easier for me to rotate in and take a fight. By the time you peek on this orb, the orb is just melting. So you'll see I'm going to run there with my knife out, and I barely get there. So again, when you line it up here on the top, I put it off to the edge. I'm going to throw my orb, and then I'm going to run. I am just holding W right now, knife out, taking as many corners as I can, and it just now melted. But the orb lands about right here and freezes off all of this. Now, this is a very effective orb. Like I said, it's easier, but you want to make sure if you're throwing this orb that your team is ready for the follow-up because you just are not going to get there in time. And by the time you do get there, they're going to hear you because you have to have your knife out, basically W sprinting. But it is great if, like I was mentioning on the other orb, if your team is wanting to stop a rotation and you kind of hold back and you throw the orb, you can do that. Now, you could put the orb a little deeper. You kind of do the same lineup. Just put it a little higher, maybe to that line up there, and throw it. And that's going to put the orb deeper into that vent area, and you're going to see it puts it a little deeper. It drops it a little further back, usually in this area. And it's going to freeze off vents a little better, right? So, like, that's a great one if you want to freeze off vents a little bit. Now, they can still play back vents and still have the peaks on your team. So, it's not the greatest mid orb, but it is one that I do like as well. Now, this next orb is a orb you can use when executing on the B site. What this orb is going to clear, it's going to clear kind of back site. So when looking at B site, you have B rafters, or a lot of people call those like the heaven vents or whatnot, because it makes kind of that vent sound when you jump on them. But a lot of people call this is heaven, not tower, by the way. And then you got alley, or what people call spawn, and then you got site, of course. Now this over here, a lot of people are calling the platform, back plat. This is where you see a majority of the people planting, or for B as far as the defenders where they're defending. And then you have the heaven, of course, which is probably the most common. These two are the most common, with a little bit on the rafters, and then you usually never see people holding sight, but it does happen a lot, especially if the gunfights have already started. So what this orb is going to do, it's going to land about in here, and it clears off this entire back site so your team can execute through garage or B main. Now, the lineup is pretty simple. You're going to go to the edge of, outside of garage, you have this like washer machine. You're going to go to the edge of the washer machine. I can't move anymore. And you're going to look up with your orb. You got these this shade structure, and you have this beam here holding up the shade structure. You're going to aim your orb kind of right there at that lower corner, and you're going to throw. This is going to drop the orb right in the back of that site, and it's going to clear out that entire back site area. As you can see, they cannot maneuver to get in there. Again, this isn't a super popular area that people play, that at least I've seen, but that is an orb you can utilize if maybe the call does come through. Hey, you have a guy back site, sitting, back site. You can throw that orb and that'll freeze that person off. All right, guys, another popular spot that a lot of people like to play is under rope, or this back corner over here. I see it all the time. You'll have people playing in this back corner, playing over here in this corner, because you have a good picture of sight here. A lot of people don't check these corners when they execute on site, so usually you can get a free kill here. Now this is a spot that you can orb. This one is like it bounces, I think 2 or 3 times, and it's the same lineup as the last one. So you jump up on your little washing machine, you go to the corner here, line up. I usually line up on that line there, and what you're aiming for is like that inner right there. You're gonna throw the orb and see if we can get this to work. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Yeah, so double bounce, and it's going to drop right on top of them, and it's going to freeze out that whole area. Now, again, I wouldn't just preemptively throw this orb unless you have the call that they are actually in that back cubby area. Then it's a great orb to throw right on top of them. You can kind of run out. You get a free peek on them and jump on site or whatever it may be. But that is a great orb to throw if you get the call that they are there. All right, so this next orb requires a lineup of your lineup, if you will. This is to orb off that like rafters area right in front of heaven, and then it gets a little bit of the spawn side heaven, and by spawn side I mean the defender side heaven. Now you line up this little orange sign here with the line on that vent up there. So you're standing kind of right here, and you want that to line up. And then you want to go straight up, and you got a bundle of cables right there. You want to put your orb right in the middle of those cables, huck it, and then if it's done correctly, it should bounce and go right onto the rafters. As you can see, it orbs off the entire rafters, including top box there, which not many people go to. And then it goes to about right here. The orb is landing, I think, about right there. So as you can see, it is also orbing off the right side of heaven. It's not keeping anybody from coming out of heaven and still, peeking sight and whatnot, but it is kind of forcing them to check this side. So if that orb is there, your team really, they should still be cognizant of people coming over rafters like that. But the more prevalent threat is going to be coming from this side of heaven. And it kind of allows them, if they're playing, back platform like I was talking about, it allows them to kind of expect a fight here. And then, if they can take a fight here and then the person coming from this side is delayed, that's even better. You can kind of get the quick kill there, and then you can take a better post-plant position, back platform here, or whatnot. Now, this next orb is the last one that I use for B attacking. Do keep in mind these are not every orb, or this is not every orb strategy in the game, obviously, or for this site even. These are just orbs that I like to use, and I'm sharing those with you. I do have a heaven orb as well that kind of sets in the middle of heaven. It's just really difficult to hit. It requires a jump throw, which is difficult in of itself. So I'm trying to find an easier way with like a real lineup. It's very inconsistent. Most of the time it misses, but when it lands, it's really good. I tend to not use it too much in games because I don't want to waste that orb. Now this orb is for back plat, like I was talking about, that back plant post position that a lot of people go into. If they're not playing heaven, usually they're playing back plat. What you do is you have this this wire right here. Again, I'm back here. There's this cone right here. I'm back here by the vending machine. I can't move forward at all. You kind of go to where you see the wire, and there's like a bend right there. You're gonna aim it at that bend. You want to put that bend in your crosshair, and then throw, and it should hit. That looks like it was a miss. This one is very, very, very little room for error. Let's see if I get it on the second try. I think it was a little too far to the left. Nope, that one's good. And it's going to land right there. This is a difficult one. Again, you guys, you saw I missed that first one. But this will kind of force anybody in this area to either move out of it or stand in your ice. So that is the last one for B attack, and that last one is pretty difficult. It's bouncing pretty much like right here. It's obviously it's not at this angle, so it's not bouncing that deep, but it's coming down, bouncing off this and dropping in right here. So sometimes it'll land inner like that, and it'll bounce outside, and then obviously it won't do anything to them. Now that we're done with the orbs that I like to use with B, these are some of the walls. Now, some of these are going to sound just painfully obvious, and you would be surprised by some of the walls. Now, if you're executing on B site, you've thrown your orbs. Typically, you're probably doing this with your team. One of the walls that I really like is the position right here to hold off heaven. Now, I take a little step further, and I get on the wall. Now, one thing that I do here is I don't peek right away. Because at this point, if there are people playing heaven, they're probably going to move into the rafters area to watch this side of sight. If you sit here and just show a little bit of patience, maybe 5 to 10 seconds, if your team can afford it, as they're pushing through with the cover of your wall, you can usually get a nice little peek here and get some unsuspecting defenders up there. You know, if you peek here, you could cover them here. You could take a fight here. Now, one thing I would say is if you miss your shot, if you take the shot, miss your shot, immediately fall off because you don't have any cover unless you fall back into here. But your wall will be falling there shortly. As you can see, it just fell right there. But I was able to get across, okay? You don't want to be caught up there taking a gunfight when you have no cover and they have cover on both sides. It's just not a fight that you want to be doing. Now, of course, you have the wall-to-wall off back plat. Not really a wall that is used too often, especially if you've already kind of executed on site. Backplat's already probably been cleared, and this is more of a post-plant area where you're post-planting and using this pillar in your post-plant. If you plant default here, I see people planting here. I'm not a huge fan of that plant. I prefer the default plant. After planting, of course, you can close off garage, but my favorite wall for post-plant is to close off the spawn area. If they come through spawn, and the bomb is ticking, and you have this here, you pretty much won the round because it's going to take them another 10, maybe even 15 seconds if they don't want to be noticed to get to heaven so that they can get onto site. And if they pull their knife out and W up there, you're going to be able to hear them. So this wall here is so good. But if you get on site and you're just a super aggressive Sage player, you want to get into heaven immediately without using the rope, you could do the wall, right here where you jump up. And you get up there, and then you take the fight into heaven. Those are your options. Those are some of the B walls that I like for offense or post plant. We'll get into like some defense walls and whatnot. There's a nice little defense wall you could use up on rafters that I like to use that I will go into when we get to that part of the video. All right, now we're going to work our way into the A site. So when we're working our way into A site, there's a few areas that we have to look out for. Of course, the main area being heaven. This is where most of the A defenders are going to go. They might start off over here in A ramps on the ramp side to try to get a pick in through A main when you're executing through here. Very popular. They'll shoot their fall back into heaven and then hold a heaven position. One of the big orbs that I like to throw is at heaven to freeze off heaven and then also freeze off rafters. Usually, when you're pushing on this map in particular, you don't want to send all 5 right down A main unless you're going just for the straight up just bull rush, which works. But usually you'll have 1, maybe 2 pushing and trying to control mid because they'll have 1 or 2 defending mid, and then you could take vent control as you're pushing out of A, and then you kind of pincer them in here. That's usually the best strategy that you're going for. Now, the orb that I first mentioned there was the heaven orb. One of the orbs I throw in almost every game. You jump up on this little planter here. The planter is right here. So you jump up, and then you kind of work your way to the edge of it. Now this heaven is basically right there. I'm going to go over a wall as well here. This orb is very simple. You go up. You kind of got this little architecture right here. You go up until it meets the shade structure, I guess there, and then you throw. Okay, and it's gonna bounce, right in front. Now again, you're going for like right in there. So we'll go throw, bounce, and it's gonna pop right there. And as you can see, heaven is frozen. So if you saw that, it froze all of this. All of this was frozen, and it's gonna make it difficult for them to kind of peek out or stop any kind of rush from heaven there with that orb. Now, another orb you can throw is for ramps. This is very, very simple orb. You go to the little planter here, corner planter. You're going to line up right here. You kind of just want to go, you got all this open space right here. If you like think of this as like whatever shape that would be. You kind of throw it in the middle of the square there. and it's going to bounce, and you're going to get ramp kind of sealed off. It's going to plant deep, so if they're playing close ramp here, they can't really peek out. And then if they're trying to get out, they can't, you know, you kind of, if you're going, that's especially good for the bull rush strat, because if they are playing here, which is a popular spot for jet players, I don't necessarily see anybody other than jet. Sometimes some sages if they want to burn a wall to get away, but usually they'll go in here, try to get a pick, and then they'll dash out. You don't really want to be somebody that doesn't have an escape and play here, unless you're like a Phoenix. You see the Phoenix, they'll flash here and then pop out and get a pick, or they'll ult here and then they'll counter your bull rush with a bull rush of their own. But that orb there is really good if you're going for that rush strat. Again, you're kind of aiming for that top square there. Again, this is the wrong angle, but this is about kind of actually where it's going to go. It's going to freeze off all that, and you can go for the rush strat. You can go for the running orb there into heaven if you really want to, and then jump onto site. But that orb is usually for the bull rushes and whatnot. All right, now these next 3 orbs that we're going to go over again, A site still. This first one is just a little cheeky. It's the same thing for it's another heaven orb. It's just for style points basically. You take your orb, you go here. Instead of jumping up to this next level, you stay on the first planter here. Again, this is just for style points. This is if you want to show off a little bounce orb. You go to the corner right there on the building. You throw it, and it's gonna bounce right into the heaven window. Again, that's just for style points. It's going to drop. It basically covers the exact same area as the first orb that we went over. Just looks a little cooler. So that's one that I like to throw there. Now, as far as back of like spawn, they call this screen. We just call the spawn. This whole hallway we call the spawn hallway. Like we say spawn to side or spawn to heaven for my play group. Now this is a popular area to hold. They'll hold back here because they have complete sight of A long. This is especially prevalent if somebody has a sniper rifle. If they're using an operator or a marshal or whatnot, they're gonna hold this back sight right in here. That's going to be an area they love to hold. Now, this is an orb that you're going to drop right on their face. So you go to the same spot where we set up for the style factor heaven orb that I showed you, and you're gonna go off the same building. Now you got the windows here. You got the middle window. You're gonna go up right above the middle window to the top of the building. You're gonna huck your orb, and that's just gonna put the orb right through the door. And as you can see, you completely froze off that entire thing. Now, it doesn't mean they're not going to still hold that angle. As a matter of fact, if you do get this orb done to you and you're holding that angle, you probably just want to hold the angle a little tighter. So you want to hold it a little closer. Like if you're here holding that angle and that orb drops on top of you, you probably still want to hold this angle. You just want to hold it a little tighter so that way you can take the shot and get out. You don't want to sit and take a fight there if you're in an orb, obviously, because it's going to take you a little longer to get into cover. You don't want to be stuck out of cover. Now, the last orb, this is for back of sight for post plant. Now, if you and by back of sight, you got A back here. You got that little hallway. We call this back hallways or back hall. They're coming back hall the site. You're gonna drop an orb like right in here is where it's gonna go. This one I don't necessarily like to use when you're taking a site because there aren't a lot of people that play that position. I have seen it, but it's just not a very popular place to play. It's a lot better for like for post planning or for retaking. I know this isn't the defending tutorial, so again, like it's kind of weird. I'm showing you a retaking orb, but you can use this if you get the call that there is somebody in those hallways. You kind of line up kind of at the edge. It almost looks like I'm off of it, and you got a gap here in the sign. You're gonna put your crosshair a little bit above the sign. You want to go dead center of the gap so you don't hit, and you're gonna throw your orb. It's just as simple as that. It's gonna bounce. Oh, I think we missed. Yeah, we missed. We missed it. This one, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of this one. It's a little difficult. It's gonna bounce like that, but it usually will bounce higher. So again, I'm gonna go to the edge, line it up. Let's put it a little more right there. I think that's good. Yeah, that's good right there. So you want to go a little higher than I went in that first one because you want it to bounce up here and then drop down because it drops about right there. And this is going to cover up those hallways. Again, not a huge orb that I would recommend using. Usually, you want to use one of your orbs for heaven and one of your orbs for that back spawn area, those back spawn halls or whatnot. Those are usually the orbs that you want to utilize when you're assaulting the site. Now, as far as walls go, there are a few walls that you can use here when taking the site. One of the walls that I've seen more recently is you close off ramp, and then you also take this angle here. This gives you an angle of if they're going to push site through default. Now, less and less people are pushing site through the stairs or default here, so it's not the greatest angle that you get. But you also kind of get angle on the hallways there. You can kind of see the tight hallways there, and a lot of times they're not looking for this angle here. You can watch ramp still, and you can watch the flank. This is a wall that I don't like using. Again, for the reason of you have 3 things to check out for when you're on it. What I like to use my walls for is to close off heaven. So that the walls are glitching. Okay, there we go. Usually when you're taking the site, why is it doing? It's being really something like that. It makes heaven a lot. Obviously, it's not closed completely, and when you get on site, they're gonna still be able to take your engagement. But as you are running up, they have a very hard time seeing you. All they're gonna see is the very top of your head, which is a very small. Obviously, if they headshot you, they headshot you and you die. That's one of the walls that I like to utilize. Obviously, the spawn wall, because again, it makes it so the only way, this is probably the strongest wall, the wall I like, especially after for post plant, because they have to come through heaven, or they have to come through flank. It makes defending a lot easier. You can kind of hold here. You got a nice little angle on heaven, a tight angle there, and then you can play the site there if you have somebody playing site, or if it's just you alone. You have less angles to watch for with this wall here holding it down. Now, as I was going through and editing the video, I noticed that this wall tutorial cut off, and the video didn't actually record. So I had mentioned about the back wall over here, which is my favorite wall. Again, the wall over here where you close off kind of the spawn flank, and then I had mentioned the shallow wall here when executing the site. Now, what I wanted to mention on with this wall is not a great wall. I don't necessarily recommend this wall. It's just a way that if they're playing deep heaven, or maybe even this close side heaven, it gives them a much harder shot on you, and it kind of forces them to move forward to get a shot, which can sometimes give you a better shot. It off. Now, the problem with this wall is it does leave a gap unless you put it, you can put it a little deeper. That allows them to get in the back, but you can kind of hold this angle here and get them. I don't necessarily like hold this angle because again, you're wide open for spawn. You're wide open for the slow like shift flank. Now, one of the walls you can use right in the opening that I really like, and you can get some cheeky peeks, if you will, is right when you're spawning, because the wall is going about like from this edge down to that edge over there. You can set this wall right here. Oh, hold on. I set it too shallow. Put it a little right here. Now, this allows you to look right at heaven. So, one thing that a lot of players will do, especially towards the beginning of the beta, I'm seeing it less and less now, but I still see it, is they will come out into heaven to play this angle to get a look at A long, and you can kind of get a free pick right here. So if they're playing that right there, you can kind of get a free pick, and they won't even, most of the time won't even know where it's coming from. They'll peek up and see you, obviously, but if you can get that first little peek and get that kill, it's a good one. The problem is you only get one wall. So if I had to recommend one wall, it would be post plant, and I do like walling off that spawn area. Now that's it for the attacking for A and B. I hope you guys did enjoy that. I'm going to do a defending video as well. Again, you guys seem to really like the other video that I did, so go ahead and check those out. Of course, I only have Sage videos right now. I'm working on other characters. I just really enjoy playing Sage. Check those out. Like I said, give this video a thumbs up. Give me a comment down below. Just anything, really. You can ask me a question or anything. Again, I'm still learning. Everybody is still learning this game. This game so far has been excellent. I absolutely love it. I have well over 100+ hours easily in the beta. Easily over 100 hours. But go ahead and shoot me a comment down below. Maybe tell me, hey, you know what? I found this orb works really well. I'm more than happy to bounce and theorycraft ideas off people. Again, this map's really difficult because there's so many obstacles. It's really hard to line up your stuff because you're bouncing off satellites, you're bouncing off roof air conditioning units and whatnot. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope you guys stay safe. Go ahead, like I said, like, comment, subscribe, share the video. That's a huge thing to help get the channel out there. I appreciate you guys and hope you guys have a wonderful day.